A woman in a long dress was buried in the ground. Her father took a stone and hit her with it. The woman's head was blown off in no time. But that's not all. Then her husband, even her children were pelted with stones. Finally, all the men of the village turned out in force. As each stone hit the woman was finally smashed into a puddle of flesh. Everything that has just happened is based on true events. This is the most horrible death penalty in the Middle East. It's used to punish women who are unfaithful in marriage. However, the woman who was just executed, she didn't actually make any mistakes. She was framed by her shameless husband. The woman's name was Soraya. She had a husband who was a policeman. She had 2 sons and 2 daughters. She seems to have a very happy life. In fact, she was beaten by her husband every day. Her whole body is bruised and battered. Even so, she still works hard every day, because in this place, women don't have the right to fight back, but men can do whatever they want here. Soraya's husband was not a good man. He's a womanizer by nature. Although he was a policeman, but he fell in love with the daughter of a death row inmate. But she's only 14 years old. In order to get the girl to come to him, her husband secretly helped her father to get rid of the death sentence. Now that he had a younger, prettier girlfriend, he couldn't stand the older Soraya in his family, so he went to the village elder. He asked him to convince Soraya to initiate a divorce. The elder had been arrested for wrongdoing. He had to agree to his husband's unreasonable demands. The elder told Soraya he would give her 2 daughters and an acre of land, but he wouldn't give her any money. But there was no way to feed them, so Soraya refused on the spot. When he found out about Soraya's refusal, her husband was furious, and she finally got into a fight with him. But before her husband could do anything, the eldest son told her not to talk to her father like that. This shows how low the status of women is here. Finally, Soraya couldn't help but smash her plate on the floor. Her husband slapped her across the face. Soraya took her daughter to her aunt's house. She told her that she was being bullied every day. She told her to get a divorce, but she had 2 daughters to take care of. If she divorced, she wouldn't have the money to support them. Then Hansen from next door came to see her. He said his wife was sick. He asked her to go and take a look, but when she arrived, his wife wasn't breathing. Hansen was a good man. He cried more than anyone when his wife died. The next day, all the people of the village gathered together. They wanted to find Hansen a woman who could take care of both father and son. The chief thought of Soraya. The chief told her to come to Hansen's house after she finished her work. After she finished her work, she came to Hansen's house to help him with the laundry and the cooking. He gave her a small allowance every month, although it was hard to do more work. But she could earn her own money, and she was free from her husband's control. So she came to cook for Hansen during the day. At night, she went home to sleep with the kids, and now that she was making some money, Soraya thought her happily ever after was just around the corner. Little did she know that her nightmare was just beginning. She was falling into a trap set by her husband and the elders. The husband was beating his wife viciously in the street. While he was beating her, he was shouting that his wife was cheating on him. It's said that family scandals should not be spread outside, but the husband wanted the whole village to know about it, because if a woman cheats on her husband here, will be sentenced to death. That is to say, she will be stoned to death, and in order to get rid of his wife, that's why he publicized his wife's infidelity. He wanted his wife to disappear forever. However, he can't be so wild, not without reason. He had already contacted the elders. He had a plan to plant evidence to report Soraya's infidelity. Must have witnesses, so the most powerful witness was Hansen. First, they bribed Hansen. They paid him to be a false witness and lie that Soraya slept with him. Hansen, the righteous one, didn't agree to such unreasonable demands at first. The husband thought, if you can't do it the easy way, then he decided to play hardball. They threatened Hansen that if he didn't come out and give false testimony, they threatened to send his son to jail. And send his son to jail. It's a simple matter. Hearing him threaten him like that, Hansen couldn't take it anymore. He promised her husband to report Soraya. She only asked him to spare her son. Soon the mayor found out about it. Soraya always denied that she slept with Hansen. She was only there to do the laundry and cook. How did she become a slut for no reason? The husband knew it would happen, so he brought Hansen here. Hansen said right off the bat that Soraya had slept with him, and he said things that only husbands and wives can say to each other. And Soraya cried. She didn't realize that Hansen was such a man, but what she didn't know was Hansen was forced to do it because there were witnesses present. The mayor told Soraya to find evidence to prove her innocence. Otherwise, she wouldn't have gotten away with it. But Soraya was the victim, and she has to find the evidence. The status of women here is so low. Women are born here as slaves. they have no chance to defend themselves. If a man wants to kill them, it's as easy as crushing an ant. Soon the village chief called a meeting with all the men to discuss what to do with Soraya. Soraya was locked in her room, waiting. It was her father who finally convicted her. Even if she was his own daughter, he showed no mercy. It was as if his daughter's life meant nothing to him. With the sound of a gunshot, the man grabbed their hose and started making the execution crown. When Auntie found out and ran away with Soraya. She was quickly stopped by the men of the village. Soraya gave up hope of escaping. He gave what he had to his daughters. Then he asked his aunt to take care of them. When they grew up, she told them the truth. Then she was taken to the scene. The men of the village were already carrying stones, excitedly waiting for the execution. In their eyes, it was more like a game where they could trample on women's lives as they pleased. Gradually, all the men of the village gathered on the spot. The elders said that everyone could hit Soraya. Every time you hit her, you add to the honor of the village. And Soraya realized there was no point in trying to defend himself, so he was buried in a pit, waiting for the cruelest death sentence in the world. Soraya's lower body was completely buried in the pit. She was about to receive the cruelest death sentence in the Middle East. Her father was the first to hit her with a rock, but he missed. The husband saw it and thought he should show the crowd how it's done, so he hit the stone himself. Soraya's head was instantly bleeding. She cried out in pain, but it wasn't her forehead that hurt the most. It was the pain in her heart, because even her sons kept it in her. Watching the villagers raise their hands in applause, Soraya's heart was completely dead. Her husband gave Hansen a stone. Let him do the same. Hansen couldn't bring himself to kill Soraya, the woman he had wrongfully executed, but the other men were not so merciful. They took up stones and pelted Soraya with them. There was no sympathy for her. They just wanted to smash her to death. The women were sick to their stomachs at the sight, but the men didn't stop. Soraya was completely disfigured. Her husband saw her fall. He came to see what was happening, but she opened her eyes with great strength. The husband was so frightened that he called on the villagers to continue the attack, so all of them took up stones and hit her. Finally, Soraya was killed by them. Then they all left. Satisfied, the husband made sure that Soraya was dead. He walked away with a grin on his face, and Soraya's body was taken by the women to the river, because the village wouldn't allow her to be buried in the ground. On the other side, the man started a bonfire, as if what had just happened was not a death sentence, it was a party. Everyone was a murderer. The next day, her aunt tried to go to the river to see the body, but the dogs had already eaten it. Not long after, she met a Frenchman who came to fix his car. He was carrying a radio on his back. She thought he might be a journalist, so she called out to him. She wanted to tell him everything about Soraya, so he could tell the world. As the reporter turned on the radio, Soraya told him the whole story. The reporter was already in tears. He was determined to tell the truth, but the elders and the men of the village would not let him go. If the whole story is made public, their village would be finished, so they sent their men to stop the reporter at gunpoint. After destroying all the tapes in his possession, then they allowed the reporter to leave. But Auntie knew they'd do it. She had already hidden the real tape. At the critical moment, she handed the tape to the reporter. She blocked the villagers' way with her body, successfully escorted the reporter away. Then came the novel, Stoned to Death, by Soraya, and then came this amazing movie. And the only photo of Soraya at the age of 9 was released to the public to honor the memory of a woman with a strong heart. Even now, in the year 2023, there is still a lot of feudal torture in the Middle East. Women in the Middle East are still on the weak side. We may not be able to do anything for them, but we can pray that women will not be harmed innocently. We hope that there will be equality between men and women. Every woman can have a good life.